Good day, distinguished colleagues. I am Anil SENMANAV from the Turkish Customs Administration, the Ministry of Trade. I am also a member of the TIR Executive Board. I would like to begin by extending my thanks to the State Customs Committee of Uzbekistan for hosting this important and, in my opinion, much needed event. I also would like to thank my fellow TIRExB members, especially Mr. Hakimov, the TIR Secretariat, and all the participants for their efforts. Unfortunately, I was unable to participate in this meeting in person. However, I am hopeful that the meeting will have fruitful and positive conclusions. Now I would like to continue by sharing with you my presentation. I understand that during their speeches, our colleagues will touch upon what eTIR stands for, what changes it brings, and how it can be realized in this region. I will try to explain how eTIR works in parallel with other digital solutions developed by the TIR Secretariat. But before getting to that point, I should mention that eTIR that we have today is the result of approximately 2 decades of work, and it allows for a major transformation of the TIR system, which remains the only international transit procedure that can be considered as global with its 78 contracting parties. This aspect of the TIR system is especially important when considering the transport operations between Asia and Europe or Middle East. While there are international transit systems, such as the Common Transit System, which Turkey also implements, or the transit system within the Eurasian Economic Union, when looking at the supply chains that go beyond a region or a continent, the TIR system comes to focus. That is so because, in my opinion, the TIR system has a potential in Central Asia and the Middle Corridor, as there are several landlocked countries in this region that relies on inland transportation for their international trade, and we can predict that there is a significant potential demand for the TIR. This is evident in the recent significant increase in the usage of the TIR carnets in Uzbekistan. However, up until now, the TIR system relied on the usage of the paper-based TIR carnets. While the existing system has offered a considerable degree of safety, reliability, and facilitation, in 2023, the private as well as the public sector relies more on digital solutions to address the needs of our time, namely predictability for supply chains, effective monitoring and implementation for customs administrations, and ease of use for all stakeholders. The lacking of a digital procedure of the TIR system has resulted in a decreasing usage of the TIR carnets in a lot of countries. Of course, there are other reasons for this trend, but the lack of digitalization has been an important factor. And that's where eTIR comes in. eTIR is one of the main outputs of the modernization efforts of the TIR system by allowing the carrying out of the TIR transports via data exchange between the stakeholders and eliminating the use of paper-based TIR carnets. As it stands, the Annex 11 to the TIR Convention, the legal basis of eTIR, will apply to all of the contracting parties of the TIR Convention with the exception of the Switzerland. This means that out of the 65 current operational countries where TIR transports can be carried out, eTIR is expected to be implemented by 64 contracting parties. In eTIR, the data exchange between the stakeholders will mainly take place via the eTIR International System, hosted by the ECE and administered and managed by the contracting parties. However, eTIR will make use of certain data that is hosted in other platforms. The TIR Secretariat, as mandated by the TIRExB, develops, maintains, and improves these digital tools. Central to them is the International TIR Data Bank, the ITDB. ITDB is in use since 1999, and it contains a wide range of important information. The first set of information I should mention is regarding the holders. Whether a company is actually authorized to use TIR carnets, whether a company is excluded in one or more countries, or how to get in contact with the company if necessary, is contained within the ITDB. Another important set of information in ITDB is regarding samples and explanations for the stamps and seals used by customs administrations. In case there are doubts about the authenticity of them during the TIR transport, this allows the customs officials on the field to verify this information. In addition to this, recently the Secretariat has developed a new module regarding the customs offices that are authorized for TIR operations. The ITDB Customs Office database aims to have a full and up-to-date information of all customs offices authorized within the TIR system, as well as their roles, their contact information, working hours, and holidays. What should also be mentioned here is that, according to a recent amendment that has entered into force in 2022, transmission of holder information via ITDB in electronic form has become mandatory. The former documents, such as the model authorization form, are no longer used. As to why all this information within the ITDB is related to the eTIR is that the eTIR international system will communicate with the ITDB in the background during the transports to receive the information that I mentioned. Of course, it is important to note that almost every information in the ITDB is coming from the competent authorities, so it requires active cooperation between the customs administrations and the TIR Secretariat to ensure that the information in the ITDB is up to date and complete. To give you an example, we can look into how eTIR transports will take place. For an eTIR transport to begin, the first step is the issuance of an electronic guarantee to the holder by the association and the registration of this information in the eTIR international system. So let's assume that there is indeed such a holder, but the company is not registered as an authorized holder in the ITDB. In such a case, the eTIR international system will not be able to verify and recognize this holder, and the association will receive an error saying that the holder was not found in the database, and no guarantee can be issued to them. As a result, the transport will not be able to begin. This process will require careful consideration when a country undertakes its interconnection project to ensure that the country will be fully ready to implement eTIR. And how will this be ensured? By a stage of the interconnection project that we call conformance test. At this point, I should mention that the conformance tests actually go beyond the verification of this information in ITDB. They intend to make sure that everything that has been done by the project team undertaking the interconnection project up to that point is in line with the eTIR specifications, the technical documentation of eTIR. This stage will ensure that once the eTIR is deployed in a country, it will be tested and will be fully ready to use. Therefore, information within the ITDB will also need to be checked during this stage. This is done by going through a number of hypothetical transports that we call as scenarios. Basically, the project team will act as customs officers and process these different hypothetical transports with the help of the Secretariat. The Secretariat will send advanced tier data or advanced amendment data as if it is coming from the holder, and the team will process this information and conduct the necessary customs procedures such as accepting a guarantee, recording a declaration data, or starting, terminating, or discharging a TIR operation. In case a problem or an error occurs, the team will go back to the previous stage, the implementation stage, identify and correct the issue, then undertake the test again. For this stage, the aim was to cover all possibilities that can occur during the course of a transport, such as multiple loadings or unloadings, refusal to start a tour operation, accidents, carriage of different types of goods, including heavy or bulky goods, or maybe even incorrect or false information submitted by the holder. All this is done by a very large number of scenarios to prevent repetition and maximize efficiency. The test starts with a very basic scenario, as you can see in the chart at the bottom of this slide. There are two countries, country A on the left side and country B on the right side. The blue line represents a border. Orange line represents TIR operations, and you can see that there are two TIR operations in this scenario. The black line represents the itinerary, and there is one customs office of departure, one customs office of exit, one customs office of entry, and one customs office of destination. There is only one consignment, meaning that no multiple loading or unloading takes place. So what is expected in this scenario is that the project team will first act as the customs officers at the customs office of departure. They will conduct the necessary controls, and if everything is in order, accept the guarantee and declaration, recording the declaration in the eTIR international system, start the TIR operation by entering the seal number if necessary and printing the accompanying document. Then, at the customs office of exit, the team will conduct the necessary controls and again, if everything is in order, terminate and eventually discharge the TIR operation. Then, acting as the customs officers of country B, start the second TIR operation at the customs office of entry and at the customs office of destination, terminate the second TIR operation by also indicating how many packages are unloaded if it applies, and eventually discharge the second TIR operation, conducting necessary checks. The scenarios gradually become more complex as the stage progresses. Here you can see another scenario. I do not want to go into too much technical detail, but you can see that the country B refuses to start the TIR operation. In other words, refuses to let the vehicle enter, and the vehicle is sent back to country A, the country of departure. The holder then amends the declaration, passing through another country, country D instead, to reach its destination, country C. And you can see that there is another loading that takes place, represented by the second black line at the bottom of this graphic. There is also a fallback that occurs during the transport, meaning the data exchange is interrupted. So the project team needs to process the accompanying document in line with the eTIR specifications. So to sum up, I should mention that the eTIR, with its legal and technical scope ready and approved by the contracting parties, is the way forward for the TIR system. The core of eTIR, the eTIR international system, will receive information from other platforms, mainly ITDB, during the eTIR transports. Therefore, in order for the eTIR to be used efficiently, aside from the interconnection, it is important that the information in ITDB is complete and up to date, and this requires the active cooperation of the competent authorities. Only then we may be able to see the full benefits and facilitation that eTIR provides. As a final point, I would like to again emphasize that the Middle Corridor, the Central Asian countries, as well as the other countries in this region, are in a position to establish the first eTIR corridor. Border crossing facilitation in this region is an important point of discussion for a long while, and I believe that eTIR can provide answers to many of these issues. So I believe that the time has come to take action and to realize this vision. This concludes my presentation. I wish I could participate in the meeting to answer any questions you might have, but I leave the matter to the capable hands of my colleagues. Thank you for your kind attention.